carefully, naraha, man, sayam, evening, prata, morning, granan, recites, bhaktya, with devotion, dukkhagramat, from all miseries, vimuchyate, gets relief from. Translation: whoever carefully recites the mysterious appearances of the Lord with devotion in the morning and in the evening gets relief from all miseries of life. Purport: in the Bhagavad Gita, the personality of God has declared that anyone who knows the principles of the transcendental birth and activities of the Lord will go back to Godhead after being relieved from this material tabernacle. So simply knowing factually the mysterious way of the Lord's incarnation in this material world can liberate one from material bondage. Therefore, the birth and activities of the Lord as manifested by Him for the welfare of the people in general are not ordinary. They are mysterious, and only by those who carefully try to go deep into the matter by spiritual devotion is the mystery discovered. And only by those who carefully try to go deep into the matter by spiritual devotion is the mystery discovered. Thus one gets liberation from material bondage. It is advised, therefore, that one who simply recites this chapter of Bhagavatam, describing the appearance of the Lord in different incarnations, in sincerity and devotion, can have insight into the birth and activities of the Lord. The very word vimukti, or liberation, indicates that the Lord's birth and activities are all transcendental. Otherwise, simply by reciting them, one could not attain liberation. They are therefore mysterious, and those who do not follow the prescribed regulations of devotional service are not entitled to enter into the mysteries of His births and activities. Why should they be? Do you find this verse and purport fascinating? In what way do you find it fascinating? First of all, what does fascinating mean? Could somebody grab the dictionary, please, and give it to Raina? No, that's Sanskrit dictionary. That's one. Raina, please look up fascinating. It's like to fasten yourself to something, right? Krishna is the attractor. Yes, Shraddha Devi Dasi. That's Canto 1, Chapter 3, text number 29. 1 through 29. Hare Krishna.
Possessing the power to charm or allure. Captivating.
Say it again.
Possessing the power to charm or allure.
Possessing the power to charm or allure. That's good. Hare Krishna. Fascinating. Okay, keep reading. Is there an etymology? Does it tell what language it comes from?
Nope. There's fascination,
Okay.
which is the power of fascinating. The condition of being fascinated.
It's the noun form.
A fascinating quality or trait.
How about look up fascinate and then see where it comes from?
Okay.
Probably like Latin, fascinare.
To bewitch. To be irresistibly charming or attractive.
Fascinate, yes.
Enchant. Witchcraft.
And where does it come from?
It doesn't say.
Look at the bottom.
Fascinum.
Fascinum?
Fascinum.
Okay, and what language is that from?
You would know. Latin, probably?
Yeah. What does it say on your iPhone? Give him the microphone. A microphone.
Fascinate, from the 1590s. Bewitch, enchant. From Latin fascinatus. Or
Fascinatus?
Fascinatus or
Fascinatus.
Or fascinare.
Fascinare, I said it.
That's right. Bewitch, enchant, fascinate. From fascinus, spell, witchcraft. Of uncertain origin.
And what does fascinare mean?
In bewitch, enchant, or fascinate.
Fascinare. Bewitch.
Enchant.
Enchant. Okay. So it's fascinating. How do we get to that word? I forget. I said, are you fascinated by this? And you said you were fascinated. So I wanted to, you said you were fascinated. And what fascinates you about this? Yes?
The appearance and activities of the Lord may just seem like stories or mundane happenings, but by going deep in devotion and the same stories can liberate us and bring us to the position of spiritual transcendence.
Yes. So this is the process of bhakti. It's by hearing. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says in the very first verse of the 7th chapter, Tat Shrinu, just hear from me, and you'll come to know everything just by hearing. And look up in your shloka books. The shloka book is this book on your book stand that looks like this. Look up the verse, Vikriditam Brajabadubir Aham Cha Vishnu. Who knows that verse? Vikriditam Brajabadubir Aham Cha Vishnu. Page 260. Huh? Where? 260. Okay. 260. Vikriditam Brajabadur Biraham Cha Vishno Shradhan Vito Nishinuyad Atavarna Yedya Bhaktim Param Bhagavati Pratilabhya Kamam Hridroga Mashva Pahinot Yacharena Dhira. The translation is, anyone who faithfully hears or describes the Lord's playful affairs with the young gopis of Vrindavan will attain the Lord's pure devotional service. Thus he will quickly become sober and conquer lust, the disease of the heart. This is a very famous and important verse, and it goes to the point here that just by hearing about the Lord's pastimes, which are mysterious and fascinating, they are not ordinary, they're transcendental. It's not, as you said, like hearing ordinary stories. By just giving oral reception to the transcendental pastimes of the Lord, there will be a change of the heart. Hridrogam ashvapahinot yacharena dhira, this verse says. Hridrogam. Hrid means the heart, and the rogam means, it sounds like rogue. It's the disease of the heart, that the weaknesses of heart that keep me captivated or fascinated by the material energy. And the material energy is a reflection of the spiritual world. The spiritual world is substantial. The material world is insubstantial. It's here today, gone tomorrow. Everything's in flux. All our relationships are changing. Whatever wealth I accumulate here, it will be redistributed. It's out of my hands, really. Just this very body, no matter how much I try to maintain it, it will degrade. So everything's moving as if in a dream. It's a dreamlike state because the external energy is wispy and not substantial. Nasato vidite bhavo, na bhavo vidite sata, ubrayor api drishnontas tvanayos tattvadarshibhi. Krishna says in the 2nd chapter of the Bhagavad Gita that those who are seers of the truth, they distinguish between this temporary nature, the material energy, and the substantial spiritual energy, the soul. Like they see the difference between the body and the soul. And there's a difference between the spiritual world and the material world. And Krishna is the source of all the worlds, material and spiritual, and his body is completely transcendental. And his activities, his birth, are all transcendental. They're not conditioned by the modes of material nature. And just by hearing about them, we rise to the transcendental position. And whatever impurities are within the heart, hridrogam ashvapahinot yacharena dhira, very quickly one becomes freed from these impurities within the heart, and one becomes dhira, or fixed in spiritual life by hearing. And so this verse is saying they means the pastimes of the Lord are mysterious, and only by those who carefully try to go deep into the matter by spiritual devotion is the mystery discovered. Thus one gets liberation from material bondage. It is advised, therefore, that one who simply recites this chapter of Bhagavatam describing the appearance of the Lord in different incarnations in sincerity and devotion can have insight into the birth and activities of the Lord. Just by reciting it means you take the time to recite it and listen. And just by doing that, you'll notice the effect. It's like medicine. When you go to the doctor, she may give you a packet of powder and say, here, just take this. And say, what's in it? And say, well, I don't have time to explain everything. I went to pharmacology school and I know, but you just take it. And if you trust the doctor and the doctor comes recommended and you take the medicine, then you'll feel the effect. Even if you don't understand exactly what's in the medicine or how it works, it may be a mystery to you. Recently when I was in Vrindavan, I got some rash on my foot. I was amazed that I didn't get it 20 years earlier because I've been walking around barefoot in India. It always amazes me that I don't catch some horrendous thing, but I usually don't. But I got some rash on my foot, and it didn't go away, so I went to the doctor. He didn't speak English, and I had no idea what he prescribed. I couldn't even read the script, but I was told, go to this doctor, so I did, and then I was told, go to that pharmacy, and I did, and they didn't speak English either, but I handed them the script, and they filled my prescription and handed me the pills, and on faith, I went home and took them. I thought, this could kill me, but I think it probably won't, because I trust the people who told me to go to the doctor, and he had a sign on the door and everything. So I took it, and the rash went away. And so I may not understand exactly, the whole process, but as we were saying before, if I take on the authority of the Vedas, if I take on faith, this is the process. Others are saying, yeah, there's the doctor, go to the doctor. That's the script. No, that's it. Take it. And what's in it? Well, you don't have time. Take it or die. Take it, and then it's cured. So this is mysterious. We don't know what's in the packet, and so it just seems mysterious to me. So it's being said here. It's guyam. It's secret. It's a secret thing, but it's revealed. It comes out and reveals itself to you if you take the time to take the medicine. So in the morning and the evening, if you regulate your life around this principle of hearing transcendental sound, you'll find you may not immediately realize the personality of Godhead and see Him face to face, but you will immediately feel relief from the pangs of material existence, mysteriously. There are so many anxieties that come along with just going from here back to your house. Like there's so many impulses that are coming, and probably your phone will ring 3 times before you get home. We're surrounded by all kinds of distractions in this day and age, from within and without. And the only possible way to get tangible relief is transcendental solution. And you'll feel that by hearing these pastimes, by just taking the time to sit down, allocating some time and saying, I'm going to hear about Krishna during this period of time. Then you'll immediately feel relief. You'll feel something's different. Now I'm free from anxiety. And this is described in the Bhagavatam as just like eating food. You know for yourself you're becoming satisfied. So when you take bona fide spiritual medicine, then you'll also feel the effect that you're becoming cured. And that's encouraging. When you feel results of any medicine and your disease starts to subside, you become encouraged. You will even become an advocate. Yeah, you should take this too. People run around, take it, this is really good. Have you tried the product yet? They get some kind of vitamin or something that makes their mother's wrinkles fell off or something, and they'll go around on TV. It's like, yeah, you got to try the product. So you got to try the product. This is the product, and if you take it and you feel the result, then you'll know for yourself. You won't have to take it on faith. You'll begin to experience right away the alleviation of the symptoms of the disease. So that's important. And therefore we sing these mantras and we recite them, and if you regulate your life around this principle of hearing, no matter where you are, what situation you're in, you can be living in a trailer, doing a movie shoot, but if you keep the transcendental vibration going in any situation, then you'll be insulated from the effects of the material nature. And gradually, the medicine will have such effect that one will experience and see the spiritual world. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu describes this as a process of watering the seed. The seed is planted in the heart for bhakti. And then as we water it, and what is that called? Shravanadi Jal. Shravana means hearing, and adi means and all the other processes of bhakti that go along with it, like hearing and chanting and remembering and praying and things like that. There's 9 processes. Shravan adi. And jal means water. So when you have a garden, you have to water it. When you have a seed, if you just water it a little bit, then gradually it'll grow. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, you get the seed of bhakti by some kind of special mercy. And then by watering that seed, then it'll grow. And where does it grow? It'll grow all the way through this universe. You may be sitting in a cubicle in, what is it? Oracle? One of the most hellish places on earth, from what I can understand. Oracle equals hell. Sorry, Larry. You can be sitting in a cubicle in Oracle, but if you water the seed, it'll grow out of Oracle, out of the Oracle building, penetrate the smog layer above the San Francisco Bay Area, and all the way through the coverings of the universe, and you'll be transcendental. Mam chayo vyabhicharina bhakti yogena sevate sagunan samatityaitan brahmabhuyaya kalpate. By the transcendental seva, by doing seva, you rise above the modes of material nature and come to the level of Brahman. And so by watering the creeper, it grows, and it actually penetrates the universe, which is no small task, to get out of the covered walls of the universe. And the Viraja river is described as, there's this mysterious river that is the demarcation between the material and the spiritual world. It's a neutral zone. It's completely neutral. There's no modes of material nature in it, but there's no transcendental quality to it either. You break through that viraja, and then into the spiritual sky, the reality, where reality, that's the source of all reality. Prastasmatu bhavanyo vyakto vyaktat sanatana yaksak sarveshu bhuteshu. Last line. Nashyatsu na vinashyati. Means once you reach that transcendental abode that's permanent, it doesn't have the characteristic of this material world that's being churned. It's like if you go to the beach down by Half Moon Bay and you just sit there for a whole day, you'll notice that sometimes the beach is visible and other times it isn't. There are tide pools, and when the tide goes out, you can see everything, and when the tide comes back in, everything's underwater. The material world's like that also. It's constantly churning. We can see it at the beach in one cycle, one day. Sometimes it's out, sometimes it's in, and we can see graphically how it's sometimes there and sometimes not. And Krishna is describing in the 8th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita how the whole material world's like that. It's like the beach. It's constantly getting covered over and then revealed again. Sometimes it's manifest, sometimes it's unmanifest. And he says it's like that from the top down to the bottom. Brahma bhuvana loka punar avartinorjuna mamupetit tukonteya punar janma navidyate. But somebody who, so from the topmost planet down to the lowest planet, they're in flux. And it's a miserable situation from the soul, because we don't want it always churned over, the things that you have. Do you? You don't want all the things churned. You don't want to lose your wallet and all your other stuff. You want a permanent, steady situation. So you get that in the spiritual world. And one who can break through to the other side, the spiritual creeper, you don't have to leave Oracle. You can be there. But if you hear and chant, you water the seed, it will break through the covering of the universe. And then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, you'll actually live on the other side. You actually live there, even though you're sitting in a cubicle in Oracle, and practically nobody can tell that you're actually living in the spiritual world. You develop your relationship with Krishna It's because it's spiritual. While you're here, live in the world, but don't be of it, Bible says. And Krishna says a person who's transcendental is like a lotus flower. Grows out of the mud and water, but it's never touched by mud and water. The lotus flower is pristine. It doesn't become sullied by the mud or the water. It remains separate from them, even though it's sitting right in it. And similarly, a person who takes this transcendental sound vibration as the regulative principle and administers it regularly like medicine, even though he or she doesn't have a taste for it yet, but has faith that it's coming from the doctor. Doctor said, take it. I have some glimmer of faith in that doctor, therefore I'll take it. And takes it on a regular basis, will begin to experience the cure and relief. And gradually, it will be profound, so profound that I'm not living in this world, although I'm sitting here physically, I've penetrated the spiritual world and I've developed a relationship with Krishna. Even in that state, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says one must go on watering. Even though I've reached that position, the watering must go on. That's how important this Shravanadi Jal is. That means regulative hearing and chanting. This is the beginning of all spiritual life, is to hear the transcendental sound. And you can tell anyone that's doing that, you can see it in their eyes. You look and you see, oh, you're hearing. Because you're not weighed down. Even though you're in the middle of it, you can see the face is the index of the mind. And Nyaya Shastra says this. You look at somebody's face, you look at their eyes, and you can tell. That's why when you go in Sankirtan, you're out to spread this to other people. If you've been hearing and chanting, they'll look at you and they say, all right, they'll turn around and stop and say, what do you got? Because everyone knows. They look in your eyes and they say, you've got something. What is that? Someone said in Washington, D.C., there's such a thing as commission breath. You know what that means? Commission breath? It means somebody wants to sell you something. They want a commission. They want something for themselves and they're trying to sell it to you. Their breath smells like commission. It's like garlic breath. Somebody walks in the room with garlic and like, ew, okay, let's move over a little bit. And somebody who wants something out of you, commission breath. They walk in and they start talking to you and you go, okay, I got to go. And so those who don't have commission breath, in other words, they don't want anything for themselves. They're not trying to take something from another. So many people said this about Srila Prabhupada when he came. They said he wasn't trying to exploit us. In fact, Rock Scully, he was the manager of the Grateful Dead and one of the first employees of Owsley Stanley. If those names don't mean anything to you, consider yourself fortunate. He was an old-timer back from the counterculture in the 60s and the Haight-Ashbury, a big name in that period. And so he was, Shyamasundar interviewed him recently for his book. He's writing about Prabhupada in the early days of the counterculture and how Prabhupada came into that. Said that Rock Scully said, we saw a lot of swamis, yogis, and other spiritualists come into the scene, he said. And he said Prabhupada was different because he was one of us. He actually came and lived with us, and he related to us on our level. And they could feel that he didn't want anything from them, except for them to become better, to improve, and to get the best thing. And when we have that, then people look at us, they'll see it in their eyes, and it reflects in our life. And we become free from the entanglement of material life. When I want something for myself, there's a catch-22. It means I have to be a debtor. And when you're a debtor, you got to work hard in this material world. And when you become free from any desires for yourself, then you're no longer a debtor. You get to be free and work for everybody. And when you work for Krishna, then you get that freedom. That's what we all want, is that freedom to actually just fully express our spiritual love for Krishna and all living beings. That's happiness. And we don't want slavery. Slavery is what we get in the material world by being obligated. So we have to give up this the stingy material desires that I have to keep this one little corner for myself. And this can be done by degrees. by slow degrees, by hearing the transcendental sound. Gradually, that long-cherished desire to stay and try to enjoy the material world, to cheat, to be the big enjoyer in the material world, it gradually releases, and I realize that my greatest fortune is in being the servant of the servant. And when I realize my nature as a servant, that I actually become joyful and happy. There's no obligation. You don't have anything to possess when you're a servant. It's all owned by the master. And there's no burden on your head, except for taking the burden for the master. But it's a different kind of burden. It's a happy burden. So this is the result of hearing the transcendental sound vibration, which is Krishna himself. The Bhagavatam is an incarnation of Krishna, and that means the sound vibration is not different from Krishna. So one who exposes him or herself to this vibration purposefully each day, morning and evening, some regulation. In a house, doesn't matter where you live. Everyone lives in a house these days. Not that many ashrams, but if you live in a house, you can turn it into an ashram just by regulating the sound. Turn on that spiritual sound in the morning and the evening at least. In the afternoon you can go work, do what you have to do. But at least something in the morning and the evening, a transcendental sound, let it go in. Purposefully sit there and listen and let the mind turn off. Turn off the mind. The mind says, this isn't productive. Where's my internet? Where's my money? Where's my this? It wants everything. It's always spinning. So put it aside and just hear the transcendental sound. Take the medicine. And all good things can come from that. I'm going to read the purport one more time because it's so profound. In the Bhagavad Gita, the personality of Godhead has declared that anyone who knows the principles of the transcendental birth and activities of the Lord will go back to Godhead after being relieved from this material tabernacle. So simply knowing factually the mysterious ways of the Lord's incarnation in this material world can liberate one from material bondage. I had a recollection once. My father took me for some tennis lessons in Berkeley, California. And I must have been about 12 at the time. And he used to listen to KPFA radio, Pacifica station. It's a local station here, and listener supported. So I remember, you know that station? You listen to KPFA. So there's KPFA, and my parents always listened to it. And I remember when I got in the car, and after the tennis lesson, and the radio was on, and there was an interview with a devotee somehow going on. That you could expect on KPFA radio. And he was saying that by hearing about and understanding the transcendental nature of the Supreme Personality of God, you can become liberated. I just remember, hearing that statement, and it fascinated me. I thought, that's really different. And so just hearing about the transcendental nature of the Lord can fascinate one, because we're looking for that. That's what everyone wants. I want to go to Brown University because I want to hear something, right? Why else would I go to Brown University? Do you know where it is? I think it's in Vermont. It's in Rhode Island. Did you go to Brown University? No. Okay. That's Rhode Island, that's right. Lokadyaksha Prabhu went to Brown University. He was telling me about that. In Rhode Island. Why would I go to Brown University? I want to hear something that'll liberate me. Right? Don't I? I want to hear something that'll give me an edge in life. So when I heard this topic, it said, you get the real edge in life if you hear the transcendental nature of the Lord and the act. That's the real edge. That's what you want to hear. Whatever they tell you at Brown, you might get some material edge, that you can get ahead in one way or the other. But everyone wants to go somewhere and hear something because it will give them an edge. Why else would they go there? Some edge, some happiness, something. That's why I'm listening. So here it is saying that you'll get that edge you're actually looking for by hearing this transcendental sound of the Bhagavatam. So simply knowing factually the mysterious ways of the Lord's incarnation in this material world can liberate one from material bondage. Therefore, the birth and activities of the Lord as manifested by him for the welfare of the people in general are not ordinary. They are mysterious, and only by those who carefully try to go deep into the matter by spiritual devotion is the mystery discovered. Thus one gets liberation from material bondage. It is advised, therefore, that one who simply recites this chapter of Bhagavatam, describing the appearance of the Lord in different incarnations, in sincerity and devotion, can have insight into the birth and activities of the Lord. I wonder, after hearing that sentence, who wouldn't want to reorganize their life now at the beginning of the year and say, I'm going to hear that chapter. Can I read it again? It is advised, therefore, that one who simply recites this chapter of Bhagavatam, describing the appearance of the Lord in different incarnations, in sincerity and devotion, can have insight into the birth and activities of the Lord. Partial answer to your, quandary about what does it mean to know the Lord in truth? How do you do it? How, if you have all material desires, how do you actually come to the level? And here, you just, with sincerity, simply recite it and listen to it. You could recite the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra and just listen to it carefully. And it acts. It's like medicine. It acts. The very word vimukti, or liberation, indicates that the Lord's birth and activities are all transcendental. Otherwise, simply by reciting them, one could not attain liberation. They are therefore mysterious, and those who do not follow the prescribed regulations of devotional service are not entitled to enter into the mysteries of his births and activities. What does that mean? Let's discuss that for a second. May we? I'll read it again. They are therefore mysterious, and those who do not follow the prescribed regulations of devotional service are not entitled to enter into the mysteries of his births and activities. All right. What does it mean? That you're not entitled if you don't follow the regulations of devotional service. What does entitled mean? What's that? Got to pay your dues. Could you expound on that? Give her the microphone. This is practical realization you have because you've attained things in your life and you paid your dues, right? Give her the mic. Reina in the back. Oh, could you just say what you said? You don't have to expound.
You just have to pay your dues.
You have to pay your dues. Yeah. Nice. In the vernacular, you got to pay your dues.
Entitled. Verb. To give a legal right or just claim to receive or do something. Second meaning, give a particular title.
A legal right. Okay, this brings us to an important verse from the Bhagavatam, which describes who has a legal right to go back to Godhead. Do you know what verse I'm thinking of right now? Exactly. Very good. Tatenu kampam susamikshamano punjana evatma kritam vipakam hridvagva purvir vidadan namaste jiveta yo mukti padesa daya bak is a legal term. And this is a loophole in the Shastra. You should look into it. Get yourself an attorney. It's like, I found out how to go back to Godhead. Here it is. Sadaya bak is a legal term, and it means that you inherit, you become an inheritor of the kingdom of God if you do what? Tate anukampam susamikshamano. If you patiently wait for the Lord's mercy to come down to you, all the while tolerating whatever miseries and suffering come from material life. In other words, you don't try to get out of it, material life, by adjustment. You don't try to readjust the situation. You simply take it as, this is my karma playing itself out, and it's coming as the Lord's mercy to keep me in an alert stage, a state of consciousness that this material world is not my home. All the while, simply praying for the Lord's mercy to descend, expecting it actually, that it will come. The full mercy of the Lord will come, even though right now I'm plowed under by the miseries of material life, by all kinds of material desires going across the screen of my mind constantly. Still, I remain in my position of devotion, despite whatever happens to me, despite how I get plowed under, in all circumstances, I stay in that condition. That person, says legally, will inherit the kingdom of God. Sadaya bak, a legal term. So it's just like the son of a rich person, rich man. He has one duty, and that is to stay alive. Because if he stays alive, and survives his father, then he inherits. That's the idea of Sadaya Bhak. So, legitimate. What word were we looking at? Entitled. Entitlement. Yes, Rain is back in the game. Give her the microphone.
I was going to say it's like if you want to go get your degree from Brown, then you have to study hard
Yes.
and graduate.
Yes.
The same would be
Exactly.
anything else, right?
Yeah. Exactly. You have to pay the price for your education. What is the price getting the degree from the university? You have to stand in a lot of lines and fill out a lot of paperwork. That's 90% of going to college. Jumping through the hoops. You jump through this hoop. Okay, do I get my degree after that? Yeah, after this and this and this, and then you jump through all the hoops, and there's about 10% of study and everything else, then you're entitled to walk around and say, I'm from Brown University. Give me my money. Entitled. So only one who has followed, it's in the negative, those who do not follow the prescribed regulations of devotional service are not entitled to enter into the mysteries of his births and activities. What else about that? Yes.
A verse in the 9th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, Ashraddha dhana purusha dharmasyasya parantapa aprapya mam nivartante mrityu samsara vartmani. Those who are not faithful in this devotional service cannot attain me, O conqueror of enemies. Therefore they return to the path of birth and death in this material world.
You have such a nice voice. Could you read the purport?
The faithless cannot accomplish this process of devotional service. That is the purport of this verse. Faith is created by association with devotees. Unfortunate people, even after hearing all the evidence of Vedic literature from great personalities, still have no faith in God. They are hesitant and cannot stay fixed in the devotional service of the Lord. Thus faith is a most important factor for progress in Krishna consciousness. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita, it is said that faith is the complete conviction that simply by serving the Supreme Lord, Sri Krishna, one can achieve all perfection. That is called real faith. As stated in the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 31, Text 14, Yata taror mula nisechanena tripyanti tat skandha bhujopa shakha pranaupaharach cha yatendriyanam tathaiva sarvarhanam achutechya. By giving water to the root of a tree, one satisfies its branches, twigs and leaves, and by supplying food to the stomach, one satisfies all the senses of the body. Similarly, by engaging in the transcendental service of the Supreme Lord, one automatically satisfies all the demigods and all other living entities. Therefore, after reading Bhagavad Gita, one should promptly come to the conclusion of Bhagavad Gita. One should give up all other engagements and adopt the service of the Supreme Lord, Krishna, the personality of Godhead. If one is convinced of this philosophy of life, that is faith. Now the development of that faith is the process of Krishna consciousness. There are 3 divisions of Krishna conscious men. In the 3rd class, there are those who have no faith. Even if they are officially engaged in devotional service, they cannot achieve the highest perfectional stage. Most probably they will slip after some time. They may become engaged, but because they haven't complete conviction and faith, it is very difficult for them to continue in Krishna consciousness. We have practical experience in discharging our missionary activity that some people come and apply themselves to Krishna consciousness with some hidden motive, and as soon as they are economically a little well situated, they give up this process and take to their old ways again. It is only by faith that one can advance in Krishna consciousness. As far as the development of faith is concerned, one who is well versed in the literatures of devotional service and has attained the stage of firm faith is called a first-class person in Krishna consciousness. And in the 2nd class are those who are not very advanced in understanding the devotional scriptures, but who automatically have firm faith that Krishna Bhakti or service to Krishna is the best course, and so in good faith have taken it up. Thus they are superior to the 3rd class who have neither perfect knowledge of the scriptures nor good faith, but by association and simplicity are trying to follow. The 3rd class person in Krishna consciousness may fall down, but when one is in the 2nd class, he does not fall down. And for the first-class person in Krishna consciousness, there is no chance of falling down. One in the first class will surely make progress and achieve the result at the end. As far as the third-class person in Krishna consciousness is concerned, although he has faith in the conviction that devotional service to Krishna is very good, he has not yet gained adequate knowledge of Krishna through the scriptures like Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita. Sometimes these third-class persons in Krishna consciousness have some tendency towards karma yoga and jnana yoga, and sometimes they are disturbed. But as soon as the infection of karma yoga or jnana yoga is vanquished, they become second-class or first-class persons in Krishna consciousness. Faith in Krishna is also divided into 3 stages and described in Srimad Bhagavatam. First-class attachment, second-class attachment, and third-class attachment are also explained in Srimad Bhagavatam in the 11th canto. Those who have no faith even after hearing about Krishna and the excellence of devotional service, who think that it is simply eulogy, finding the path very difficult, even if they are supposedly engaged in devotional service. For them there is very little hope of gaining perfection. Thus faith is very important in the discharge of devotional service.
So I just want to turn this into the positive, that everyone can increase their faith and become more qualified. It's not that a certain class of people are unqualified and therefore can't become qualified. Every soul has the propensity to love Krishna. Nitya Siddha Krishna Prema Sadhya Kabunoi. It's there naturally within the heart. And becoming qualified is our birthright. That's what a living entity has an impetus for, unless infected by the lower modes of nature like ignorance. In ignorance, I may lose my impetus to become more qualified and just think, okay, I'm down, so what? Who cares? This is the influence of ignorance. In rajas, in passion, I try to become qualified for so many things. I become president of my class at school, and then I think now I have to become the mayor of the city, and after I'm mayor I want to become governor, and after governor I want to become a senator, and after senator I want to become president, and there's no end to it. And in devotional service, although it's not affected by rajas, I should endeavor to become more and more qualified, and that's altogether possible. Tasyaiva hetu prayateta kovido na labhyate yad brahmatam upariyada. Narada Muni suggests that trying for material qualification is not ultimately useful, because whatever stage I attain will be whisked away by time anyway. But if I try for spiritual qualification, I will be successful, and I'll never lose whatever advancement I make. It will never go in vain. So we should try to qualify ourselves. It is possible. And it is the process of devotional service to become more and more qualified. Yadrishi yadrishi shraddha siddhir bhavati tadrishi. The more I qualify myself by increasing faith, this shraddha, which is very specifically described, Shraddha Shabde Bishwas Kahi Sudreda Nishchoy Krishna Bhakti Koile Sarva Karma Krita Hoy. As mentioned in the purport we just heard, this Shraddha means that I have an increasing faith that as I direct my attention towards the process of Krishna Bhakti, I'll attain all other things. Everything else comes from that. Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha. This means Dharma, religious activities, Artha, the material gain, Kama, sense gratification, Moksha. All these things are mentioned that they simply become maidservants to Bhakti. They're all included. The Bhakta is not even interested in them. And liberation, what to speak of liberation, Bhakta is not interested. All those things that are desired by other people are waiting to serve a person who's engaged in devotional service. Means that if I simply do bhakti, that I'll attain all things. As Krishnadas Kaviraj heard in a dream from Lord Nityananda, he said, go to Vrindavan, there you will attain all things. Vrindavan means devotional service. It means to perform devotional service constantly. And so by doing devotional service, I will attain all things. This is faith. And by that is what we mean by faith, by increasing the faith. Yadrishi, yadrishi, shraddha, siddhir, bhavati, tadrishi. And as that faith thickens, I advance in devotional service. My perfection, my siddhi in devotional service becomes more and more pronounced. This is the subject of the nectar of devotion, the increasing of faith and coming closer to Krishna. And Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur has given elaborate commentary on that progression, which describes how one first comes to have a little bit of faith, and then from that little bit of faith one associates with devotees. From that one takes up the process of devotional service. From that one begins the battle of getting rid of unwanted things within the heart. And then one comes to steadiness in devotional service. And then one comes to have a taste for devotional service, a positive taste. In other words, it tastes better than anything else. There's no more competition. And then there's an attachment to it that intensifies, and it becomes an emotional experience. And then one comes to prema. When one comes to prema, then all of the emotions that you can imagine that you have in this world for, say, an attachment for another person, the expression of that people call love in this world, where there's an infatuation, where you can't stop thinking about another person, where you become so attached to relatives or such. When one dies and leaves the world, then emotionally you're crushed, and so on and so forth. So Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur describes how all of those are actual, those emotions are not false, except they're just misdirected. However, when one comes to prema, one is dipped in the elixir of devotional service, and all those emotions that we have now become transcendentalized, and they're directed towards Krishna. The intensity doesn't go away. They're simply directed towards the cynosure, the center of all attention, where all our attention is reciprocated, because that's the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. And so, by hearing and associating with devotees, my faith should thicken, and I should become stronger in faith. And also, as I hear, I'll learn. Everything goes in. When it goes in these ears, it stays in here, and it's accumulated inside. So investment in hearing is very essential for devotional service. And learning how the Shastra works and what's in the Shastra also fortifies us. Tashtraddhana muneo jnana vairagya yuktaya pashantyatmani chatmanam bhaktya shruta grihitaya. It means that as we hear and chant and associate with devotees, that faith becomes fortified by the knowledge of the Shastra. It's a fort around my Shraddha. I understand the logic. I understand the profundity of the Shastras and who's putting them forward. I have faith in them, and they protect me. And I know how to protect myself also. As Prabhupada says in the preface to the Srimad Bhagavatam, by learning the Srimad Bhagavatam, one him or herself comes to the perfection of spiritual life, and also is able to stave off the attacks of the atheists or the unfaithful people. We don't become swayed by that because we're so firmly fixed in Scripture and in the logic behind the God and how I'm actually a part and parcel of God and such. That brings one in qualification to the position which is being described here, the first-class devotee, the Uttama Adhikari, who has firm faith and also is fortified by Shastra and can explain it to other people. And this is not simply something that falls from the sky. As Raina was saying, when you want to graduate from Brown University, you go and you take the classes and you do it, and then you come out with a degree. So in bhakti, by chanting Hare Krishna and listening sincerely and studying the Srimad Bhagavatam and these other activities, we are meant to qualify ourselves to come to the highest position. It's not that it's just some stamp, or it's not something that some people are qualified for and others aren't. Everyone must become qualified to come to that position. You must. It's the purpose of life. If you don't do it now, you have to do it some other time. So you might as well do it now. Masu Chaha. Don't worry, don't hesitate, Krishna says. Just do it now. Why not? Give it a shot. Because it's mysterious and Krishna's backing it. That should say something. It's backed by Krishna. Money back guarantee. Double your money back. All right, let's hear the verse for the day. Oh, that's not it. This is it. It's in this white book. There's a lot of work that's gone into this arrangement that we have here. Just take a minute to notice. You won't find many other places, I think, around ISKCON anyway, where when you sit down for Bhagavatam class, you have all kinds of literature at your disposal. This is first class. Like on United Airlines, they have 4 classes. They have coach, which is just economy. You don't get anything. And then you have, then above coach, you have what's called, what is it called? Premier? Yeah, Premier, I think. And then above that, you have business class, and above business class, you have first class. Now, in first class, if you walk through that cabin at the end after you've been sitting in coach, you see what you didn't get. And what you don't get is your own station. They have their own video machine and all kinds of everything. It's like having a little office suite, that you can live in up there. So this is first class, because you have everything, a little office suite. Here you have all the books that you need to look up everything that you want to look up during the class, so you can qualify yourself for this higher stage. You want to qualify yourself to graduate, to come up from whatever level you're at now to the next higher level. You can do that. It's all being provided. So in your little office suite, first class office suite here at ISV that's offered to you in your first class experience, you have this Srila Prabhupada Shloka book, and for which some devotees went to great trouble to find out what were the most frequently quoted shlokas that Prabhupada used, and they compiled it in this book. All glories to these devotees too, from the archives who did this, and then put it in a book form. Of course, that book went out of print in the United States, so we, Rakshit and I, ordered them from India and brought them all over here so everyone can have them. So there was a lot of thought that went into this, and it's here for a purpose. When you hear something, try to look it up, and there's a process for looking it up. This is how you become more qualified. Also, this book has a listing of all the shlokas that we generally chant here, and Ramananda Saka Prabhu and others have gone to great length to put this together. No small task to organize it. You'll also find a songbook, Songs of the Vaishnava Acharyas, and this is a printout with permission from the Bhaktivedanta Book Trust of the current shlokas that we're reading, because generally in most classes what you get is a blackboard or a whiteboard that has the shloka for the day on it, not the translation, just the Sanskrit, and then you just listen. But here in this class, because you have first class suite, not coach, you get this, which has the current verses. And Akaranath Prabhu goes to at great length to get these printed out every time we're in a certain section. So don't take it for granted. And what to speak of the fact that Vyasadeva himself took the trouble to write it all down. And we should think like this. What's the question of not becoming qualified? They're all laying it out for us. Vyasadeva takes the trouble to write down all the Vedas just for us. And then, all the great acharyas, they pass it down, and say, here it is. Prabhupada took a painstaking amount of time to sit and write and compile all these books and put them together. Then the devotees here are scrambling to put it together in such a way that it's all there in front of me. And then what is my response? So we should not take it for granted. We should see that this is, lifeline is being extended to me from the spiritual world. Take it. That's all you have to do. That's all that's being asked, is just take it. Just take it above the other things that are being offered in this world, which are already proven to be paltry and unsubstantial and inconsequential, or consequential in the sense that you have to suffer the consequences from taking them. So why? So this is our mission here, to offer everything and take everything. And the more you take it, the more you'll have to give. So let's take something from the Srimad Bhagavatam that's been passed down to us. And in this white book, we'll look at text number 27, which is the text for the day. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya. Naram Chaiva Narottamam. Devim Sarasatim Vyasam. Tato Jayamudiraye. So the first three verses that we said, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. This is one of the primary mantras from the Vedas that is used at certain times in the creation as one of the great mantras, Maha Mantras, that for attaining perfection. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. And it's offering obeisances to God who's all-pervading. And then we sang a verse. We recited Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam. This verse is offering respects to the Lord Narayan, to Srila Vyasadeva, who compiled the Vedas, to Mother Saraswati, who's the goddess of learning, Srila Vyasadeva, the author I mentioned. And before we begin, we're giving our gratitude. And this is the way to enter into reading transcendental literature, is to recognize that it's been given to us as a gift, and we're praying to enter with an open heart. So I'll say the Sanskrit and then please repeat. Yaswakat parato veha jata nirveda atmavan hridi kritva haringehat pravrajet sa narotamaha. A few chanters, please. Yaswakat parato veha jata nirveda atmavan ikritva harim gehat pravrajet sa narotamaha. Yaswakat parato veha jata nirveda atmavan hridikritva harim gehat pravrajet sa narotamaha. Yaswakat parato veha jata nirveda atmavan hridikritva harim gehat pravrajet sa narotamaha. Vaishnavis. Yaswakat parato veha jata nirveda atmavan hridikritva harim gehat narotamaha. Word for word. Ya. Anyone who. Swakat. By his own awakening. Paratava. Or by hearing from another. Iha. Here in this world. Jata. Becomes. Nirveda. Indifferent to material attachment. Atmavan. Consciousness. Shridi. Within the heart. Kritva. Having been taken by. Harim. The personality of Godhead. Gehat. From home. Pravrajet. goes away. Sa, he is. Nara Uttamaha, the first-class human being. Before I give the translation and purport, before I read the translation and purport, a little context. In this story, there's a king named Dhritarashtra who was a great king in his own right. He was born blind, and he's one of the main subjects of the Bhagavad Gita because the war was fought because he pushed his sons. He had 100 sons. He pushed them forward, especially one of them, Duryodhana, to rule the kingdom unjustly and cutting in front of the Pandavas, who were meant to take the throne. And it came to a head after some time, and there was this huge war that took place in Kurukshetra. Dhritarashtra and his sons lost the war, but he still, after the war, lived in the house of those who he tried to cheat out of the kingdom and who he waged war against. And he was growing old, and he was dying, and there were symptoms of death coming on. And he had a very well-wishing nephew who came to save him from that situation and brought him out. His name was Vidura, and he came and took him out of the situation in the middle of the night practically, because he knew that he wouldn't give up on his own. He had to very heavily preach to him, to tell him, come out now and use the last part of your life to concentrate on God. So he took him away. He finally went away willingly by hearing this strong preaching of Vidura. He went away to the forest, and there he performed some very intensive kind of yoga practice and attained a certain kind of perfection in this life by doing that, by Vidura's special beckoning for him to come out. So in that context, this is what's being discussed in these verses about coming out of one's situation and attaining a higher position of life. Translation: he is certainly a first-class man who awakens and understands, either by himself or from others, the falsity and misery of this material world, and thus leaves home and depends fully on the personality of Godhead residing within his heart. Please repeat. He is certainly the first-class man who awakens and understands, either by himself or from others, the falsity and misery of this material world, and thus leaves home and depends fully on the personality of Godhead residing within his heart. Srila Prabhupada's purport. There are three classes of transcendentalists, namely 1, the dhira, or the one who is not disturbed by being away from family association. 2, one in the renounced order of life, a sannyasi by frustrated sentiment. And 3, a sincere devotee of the Lord who awakens God consciousness by hearing and chanting. You'll have to submerge that purse in water, I think. Okay. Number 3, a sincere devotee of the Lord who awakens God consciousness by hearing and chanting and leaves home depending completely on the personality of Godhead who resides in his heart. The idea is that the renounced order of life, after a frustrated life of sentiment in the material world, may be the stepping stone on the path of self-realization, but real perfection of the path of liberation is attained when one is practiced to depend fully on the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who lives in everyone's heart as Paramatma. One may live in the darkest jungle alone, out of home, but a steadfast devotee knows very well that he is not alone. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is with him, and he can protect his sincere devotee in any awkward circumstance. One should therefore practice devotional service at home, hearing and chanting the holy name, quality, form, pastimes, entourage, etc., in association with pure devotees. And this practice will help him awaken God consciousness in proportion to one's sincerity of purpose. One who desires material benefit by such devotional activities can never depend on the Supreme Personality of Godhead, although he sits in everyone's heart. Nor does the Lord give any direction to persons who worship him for material gain. Such materialistic devotees may be blessed by the Lord with material benefits, but they cannot reach the stage of the first-class human being, as above mentioned. There are many examples of such sincere devotees in the history of the world, especially in India, and they are our guides on the path of self-realization. Mahatma Vidura is one such great devotee of the Lord, and we should all try to follow in his lotus footsteps for self-realization. Om Jnanatimidandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Any questions so far about this verse or anything else? Any points that stuck that you'd like to hear more about? Yes, Mayapur Vihari Prabhu.
Prabhuji, one small question. Early in the class you mentioned about the importance of hearing, transcendental sound. You suggested morning and evening at least. So, of course, one of course is chanting, other is, listening to some lectures or kirtan. That is included, is that correct? Number one. And when I'm listening to some lecture, my concentration or focus is much more than when I'm chanting. Sometimes feel I progress much more, when I'm listening to some lecture or even reading for that matter. Of course, when I'm chanting, I try to focus, but the mind goes everywhere. So, what the question is that at least in the evening when I'm listening to some lecture, is that what I say is also a part of the listening activity?
Yes. Yeah, definitely. And some of the things that where you feel that you're not, your mind's going here and there, you should practice. And you can learn to concentrate more. Concentration you can learn, and that's a good skill to have. But definitely listening to lectures is bona fide process of hearing. Other points?
I thought that in reading the purport, there were a couple of points that stand out. One is that the material world is full of miseries, and one should not make one's permanent home here. The other point that comes out is that one can turn to Krishna, who is in one's heart as Paramatma, and that he won't grant everything. If you turn to him and want back again material desires, he's not going to grant that. But turning to him to know the ultimate truth, the absolute truth, that would be possible, and one has a chance ultimately then to turn to him as he is the savior. With respect to this point about that if one asks for material desires, he won't grant them, that may be qualified to say that Krishna does grant desires of a person who turns to him, but then he may grant them the way he wishes, not necessarily the way that an individual would like the desires to be satisfied. These are some points that I thought stand out in this purport.
Thank you. Nice points. Yes. Microphone, quadrant 1.
Prabhuji, I was also thinking about the part where they say the person goes and lives in the jungle alone, and that is such a huge leap of faith in Krishna, that you agree to give up everything and you still have that faith that Krishna will take care of you.
That doesn't have to be taken as a leap. A leap is, it could mean that there's a long distance to go, and that's why we call it a leap of faith. But by increments, even before one lives in the jungle, the whole world's a jungle, actually. Jungle, if you look up the word jungle, I mean, jungle's used to describe, sometimes say concrete jungle, or, that place was a jungle. Jungle, it's an interesting word, jungle. It doesn't it doesn't mean the forest, sort of the classical sense of, a sannyasi going off and living in the forest. I don't know if there'll be many forests left to go in, or jungles to live in. So it doesn't necessarily mean that. But what is jungle?
It originates from Sanskrit word jungala, which refers.
Could you give him a microphone? This is fascinating. Jungala.
The word jungle originates from the Sanskrit word jungala, which referred to uncultivated land or dry land.
There you have it. My point is this, and it's mentioned here, even from home, one must cultivate this kind of faith. So we can start, one may live in a house with a family and such, by increments, to develop one's faith in Krishna, to see that Krishna is providing. And there's a sort of a forward march in materialistic society that I always have to get something else to satisfy me. And if I want something, a desire comes into my mind for some object, I have to go get it right away. Doesn't it? This kind of society that prompts that idea is like, you need it now, just go get it. Krishna says, yadrishya labha santushto. Learn to be satisfied with things that come of their own accord. And that means calm down a little bit. Those desires and that impulse to just get the next thing, and I have to have it, to learn how to wait, just develop a taste for hearing and chanting and feel self-satisfied wherever you are. And realize that you don't need much. Really, as Prabhupada used to point out, even if you make $1 billion, you can still only eat 4 chapatis. I mean, the guy who has no money, he can eat 4 chapatis, and the guy with $1 billion, he can eat 4 chapatis. And if you get typhoid, it feels the same as if you have $1 billion or if you're broke. You still feel really crummy when you have typhoid fever. And so to learn how to be self-satisfied, really, especially around hearing and chanting in your own home, that's the center of activity where you feel satisfied and not the impulse to go out and get something else and bring it back in. It begins there, and we have to cultivate it from where we are. It doesn't mean we take a leap of faith and I have to go live in the jungle and see if I can handle it. We have to learn to see how we can handle not catering to every single material desire wherever I am, and living in the situation I'm in now, but developing a satisfaction from my spiritual practice and waiting for things to come of their own accord more naturally. That's the beginning. By doing that, I actually develop faith in Krishna wherever I am, and I see that he's providing everything naturally. And if you need to, go take a look at the squirrels. They are some of my shiksha gurus who live in my yard, and I take shelter of them constantly. The squirrels and the birds, I watch them all the time, and it calms me down. I go out and look, and I say, you guys are fine. You don't need, you don't need anything. 1 persimmon, and the guy's happy for the rest of the day. And they always get it. They always have something. They're hopping around out there, and they have a little hole to live in, and there's no insurance policy on it, and there's no rent. And they just come out, and it's all there. And the Shastra says, so look at them. Look at all of them. They're getting satisfied. They're getting everything that they need. The Lord's providing. So why do you need a big elaborate arrangement? A 6,000-foot square house. Why do you need a house as big as a Kmart to live in? Shukadeva Goswami says this at the beginning of his instructions to Parikshit Maharaj, just learn to be satisfied with the gifts God's giving you automatically, then you'll become a wealthy person. And you'll learn that He's actually there in your heart, He's there everywhere, and you can learn that from any situation. You had your hand up next, and then Varsha.
There were two things. One was earlier on when you were reading.
You'll have to use the mic.
Earlier on when you were reading, there was a word that was tabernacle, and I missed the entire context, but I guess my question is that the heart wherein lies that seed of devotion? Secondly...
Well, first of all, let's answer the first question. Tabernacle, George? Tabernacle. If I'm not mistaken, it's some kind of a... Go ahead. It's a prison, no?
No.
No. It means the heart?
It's from the Hebrew.
Hebrew.
Mishkan, residence or dwelling place.
Oh.
But it's
Tabernacle.
a holy dwelling place.
It's a holy dwelling place. Okay. Good to know. We got Sanskrit, we got Hebrew. English is a real mix of different languages, isn't it? Okay, so your question about the holy dwelling place?
In the context of the reading, is the tabernacle the heart? Is that wherein lies that seed of devotion?
Yes. Okay. Yes, the seed is sown in the tabernacle of the heart. This is described as the seat of consciousness. The seat of bhakti is described as being the heart. Krishna mentions many times that He's seated within the heart. Ishvara sarvabhutanam hridayasya arjuna tishtati. He says, I'm there within your heart. He says, I give instructions from within the heart. So the heart center is vitally important, that tabernacle. Yeah, good to think of that. And what's the second?
When at the end of this reading, one who desires material benefit by such devotional activities can never depend on the Supreme Personality of Godhead, although He sits in everyone's heart. So is that speaking to intent? And does intent, the person who's just chanting or doing devotional practice with the hope of material gain, eventually will the chanting erode that desire for material gain?
Yeah. There's a story about Dhruva Maharaj, who was a young prince, and his father had several wives, and he played favorites among them. And Dhruva Maharaj was born of the Kshatriya race, so he had hot blood. I mean, he wanted to be a ruler. He was a ruler naturally, and even as a little boy, he had that feeling. One day he went to sit on his father's lap, and his father's chief queen, who was not the mother of the boy, forbade him and said, you can't sit on your father's lap because I'm the favorite queen and you're not born from me. And because he was henpecked, he allowed that. And the little boy, Dhruva, became so infuriated that he was crying hot tears, and he ran to his mother and said, I've been forbidden to sit on the lap of my father, and what should I do? I'm so distraught and furious about this. And she said, you'll have to pray to God. And he said, where's God? And she said, in the forest, you'll have to go find Him. And Dhruva was so determined. He had this burning material desire to, as my mother used to say, never underestimate the power of all show them. He felt, I'll show them. I'm going to have a kingdom bigger than his. I can't sit on his lap. I'll surpass him, and I'll surpass Brahma, who creates the universe. I'll have he wanted like the biggest kingdom. That was his desire. So he took off for the forest just as a little boy, just on the suggestion of his mother. She wasn't actually telling him, decamp, go to the forest, but he took it like that. And on the way to the forest, he met his spiritual master. And that was possible because the process of advancing in spiritual life is governed by the will of the Supreme, who's in the heart, who understands my intention. And Dhruva was on the way to the forest to find God, even though it was a material purpose. And Krishna, in his heart, informed another living entity, Narada Muni, who was spiritually advanced, to come and intercede. And it just happened by chance. And it's described that Narada Muni overheard the discussion between Dhruva, the little boy, and his mother. He wasn't in the proximity, but it's described that he overhears it by the mercy of the Lord within the heart, who makes these kinds of arrangements. He met his spiritual master, and Narada told him, first he tested him. He said, you're a little boy, just go home. You don't need to do this. Besides, you should just be equal to everyone, or learn how to deal with different kinds of situations and tolerate different kinds of experiences that you have, and then you'll be happy. And he gave him some Brahminical instruction. And Dhruva Maharaj said, I respect you, I thank you very much, but I can't follow your instruction, I'm going anyway. And Narada then understood that he had passed the test, that he told him to go home, and he said, no, I'm not going home. So he saw his determination, then he gave him instruction of how to see God by performing certain kinds of Ashtanga yoga and chanting a mantra, which we chanted at the beginning of the class, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So Dhruva, with this intent in his heart to attain a kingdom greater than even his grandfather, went about these severe austerities, and he did attain a kind of perfection by which God himself, Narayan, came to see him personally. But when he saw Narayan, he changed his heart. And he said, I was searching for broken bits of glass, and now I've got the greatest jewel. And he regretted it. He regretted it in his prayers, which he recited to the Lord when he saw him. He said, I'm like a person who goes to the emperor. And the emperor said, I'll give you whatever you want. And I ask for the husks of rice. After the rice has been husked, there's this useless stuff that comes out. And it's please give me some of that. That's what I was asking for. And he lamented. He felt that he had asked for something that was unnecessary. Krishna gave it to him, though. Not only did he fulfill his desire for pure devotion, he became a pure devotee, but he also gave him his own planet called Dhruvaloka, which was the fulfillment of his material desire. So he did both, actually. And there's another story that Prabhupada tells about. That story is from the Srimad Bhagavatam. And Prabhupada tells another humorous story about a thief who used to hear about Krishna in Vrindavan. Now, Krishna, as a child, was seen in here, there, and everywhere around Vrindavan, and sometimes he'd have these valuable, even as a baby, some valuable jewel around his neck. And so this thief heard about this young baby who was wandering around Vrindavan with this valuable jewel and other valuables around his neck and arms. And he thought, a baby? It's like taking candy from a baby. I'm gonna go to Vrindavan and steal that. I'll find that baby and I'm gonna steal the jewels. That was what it got into his mind and heart. So he made the journey to Vrindavan. He's looking around. Where's that little kid with all the jewels? Yeah, he's over there. He's over there. Finally, he found him. And by the time he came in contact with Krishna and tried to woo the jewels out of him, he became so attracted to Krishna, he fell in love, with Krishna and lost his desire to steal. There's even a modern day sample of that, a devotee who's actually still in our movement, who's a disciple of Prabhupada named Haridas. Hari means one who steals, one who takes away. Like Krishna takes away all your miseries, so he's called Hari. And Prabhupada named him Haridas because he was a pickpocket. He was expert at going to train stations and other places, and he knew how to extract people's valuables off their, like a wristwatch. He knew how to brush up against you and you walk away and, where's my watch? I had it a minute ago, and he's walking away with it. That's what is his livelihood. So he saw a picture of Prabhupada wearing a watch. Someone had given Prabhupada a watch. Prabhupada didn't wear them very long. Sometimes people would give Prabhupada a valuable watch, and then he'd give it away and said, but he saw some picture and he thought, I'm going to go get that. So he came there, and he was living amongst the devotees, trying to figure out a time and a place to steal Prabhupada's watch. And finally, he got some purification, and he went and he told Prabhupada, I came here because I wanted to steal your watch. Prabhupada said, here, take the watch. And then he got initiated later, and he called him Haridas. And he's still among us to tell the story of how that happened. So when we have some material desire, but we approach Krishna, he'll purify us of that material desire. Rakshit Prabhu alluded to that. There are verses from the Bhagavatam in the 5th canto, Satyam Dishati Artito Artitam Nrino, that describe how you may have desire when you approach Krishna for material things and ask for these benedictions. So Krishna will give them to you in such a way that you won't ask for them again. He's expert like that. He knows exactly how to manipulate everything so it comes out in a favorable way. So therefore it's described in the Bhagavatam 2nd canto, whatever desire you have for anything, better to approach Krishna for it and ask rather than going in some other direction. Does that help? Okay. Varsha.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Prabhuji, we are talking about the desires in the materialistic world. Desiring for your children's success is also materialistic?
Depends on your definition of success.
Success not exactly in towards Krishna. He is, children, they want success in their life to become something. Like if the child is doing engineering or medicine or anything, he wants to become something in life. So is that also a materialistic desire?
To want success in the form of what they want, some kind of material attainment. Yeah. Really, I say we should understand what real success is. And this is in the Bhagavatam described by Narada Muni, that even if you get the whole world and you didn't get Krishna, then you didn't get anything. No success. Whereas if you tried for Krishna consciousness and you were not successful, in other words, you didn't make it all the way, he says, Tyaktva Sudharmam Charanam Bhujam Harer Bhajana Pakvo Ta Patet Tatoyadi. And that means Tyaktva means to drop everything else. Sudharma means you give up your education at Brown University. And you say, I'm going to become a devotee, like full-time, something like that. Tyaktva Sudharmam Charanam Bhujam Harer, and I'm going to worship Krishna. Bhajana Pakvo Ta Patet. Then it says, but you are apakva, which means you weren't ripe yet. And therefore you didn't make it, and you fell down again from that position. Narada Muni says, that's better, because you tried for it, and you did something. Then if you did your dharma perfectly, you became the top student at Brown University, and you made a perfect career, but you never took to Krishna consciousness. He said there's no value in that at all. So Bible says similar thing. What profiteth a man if he gains the whole world but loses his soul? So we should have a clear idea what success is. And if we have that clear idea, and we wish for that, actually it's mandated in the scripture that if you become a mother, a father, a guru, any kind of leader, that the purpose of being any of those things is to lead your dependents out of the cycle of birth and death and allow them to attain liberation. That's success. So, does that answer your question?
Yeah, I understand, Prabhuji, that, but like you see, today's children, they, in spite of telling them that have faith in God. They have faith in God, but they have, you see, their own way of thinking. And,
what?
they have their own way. You see, they feel having faith just in God is good enough, and not, you see, sitting and chanting, and you see, they don't believe in that.